Alright, normally I would start one of these videos with a bit of like a leveling showcase, like, but there's no point doing that for this build, for this upcoming league, because they have made so many sweeping changes to how melee is going to feel leveling and playing in the end game, the damage effectiveness of skills, the tools we have available. I couldn't represent what this build feels like to level to myself or anyone else, but I'm very confident with melee leveling. Even if you're not confident with melee leveling, this is going to be a very comfortable build to level. We'll level with Sunder if you want to. You can transition to Double Strike whenever you like. We are playing Double Strike Gladiator. We were playing Double Strike of Impaling Gladiator until they nerfed it yesterday. I had a whole 1 hour video guide done for that, and because the skill itself has changed, I thought I'd re-record this because GGG like to suddenly take away 25% of the damage of the skill that you made an hour-long video guide on. And I don't know, maybe I can do this a bit quicker this time, a bit more succinct, but I like to ramble about things I enjoy, so strap in for the ride of a lifetime. We're playing Double Strike Gladiator. Why are we playing Gladiator? Simple. 3 of our nodes, gratuitous violence, which we take later on. We'll talk about why we're taking bleed pops. It's not a bleed build, but determined survivor and more than skill are not nerfed in ruthless. They do the exact same thing. We get all the benefit. We get all the defensive bonuses of this build, and that's really important for ruthless because defenses are one of the things we can struggle to find due to nerfed gear, nerfed auras, and the like. The only thing that's gutted a bit is more of attrition. It has half the effectiveness after like 100 seconds, but that's okay. That's 50% more damage still. That's insane. Why are we playing Double Strike? Double Strike basically has 190% more damage effectiveness now. It's crazy. It does a lot of damage, and it's also something we pick up on the beach, so we can use it from, we can use it for single target immediately, and then, just take Tribal Fury, and once you feel comfortable with it, you start blasting. And it's... Why are we going crit though? You might be looking like, oh my god, it's a ruthless build. What POB magic is this? There's no magic to this number aside from the fact we're using replica Wings of Entropy, which is a unique, but it's a replica unique. You farm it in Heist. You can find it very quickly in Heist generally. Like, after a few blueprints, probably one will show up, and if it doesn't, you keep going. You might get a little unlucky, but also someone's going to find one and put it on trade. If you're playing trade ruthless, such a good weapon. People underestimate this weapon so much. They're like, oh, it doesn't have very high fizz damage, so it's not very good. It has insane attack speed that gets averaged out for like your overall attack speed on that main hand, and then the crit chance allows you to go crit. Basically, this is what allows us to go crit. Plus 9% minimum. You can get we can put a better version of this as well. This can go up to like 10%. And because it's so farmable, you can farm a really good version of it. Quality giving 20% more damage on it as well helps push it that bit further. The biggest line on this item though is it counts as dual wielding, and it gives us the block chance, bonus block chance. It gives us even more innate block chance. Like, this weapon alone gives us like 50% chance to block and an extra chunk of spell block on top of that. So we don't need much investment to go into block on the tree. If you might, if you see, like, I'm not taking these nodes here, these suck, they're not good enough, we get charges otherwise, they don't give enough block. We just take this little mastery here for like boosting the maximum chance. It's good, it's very good for EHP. We just take this and this and like this, and then you get the small passives here, and that's it. And then with versatile combatant, we have let's say we haven't blocked recently. That's our normal block chance. 2/3 of attacks do not hit us. Or they hit us, but they don't do damage. This is when we have blocked recently, and this helps sustain itself. It's because it's an effect tied to its own effect. Like when you've blocked in the last 4 seconds, you're going to block much more likely, which means you're going to have much more likely blocked in the past 4 seconds, which is really cool. So a lot of the time when we're running around maps, we've generally got that defense up. All we need is like a small hit to proc it or a big hit, and we're blocking 90% of attacks and spells. So we don't even take suppression. You might think like, oh, why don't I just go over here and take some lucky suppression? It's not even worth it. I don't think. We have a level 20 steel skin with cast when damage taken to help our EHP pool if things do get through. We've got decent recovery, we've got life flasks, we've got everything. As long as we don't get one shot, we're going to be fine. And we've got extra mitigation to not get one shot as well. You'll see our max hit behind the block, because this isn't boosted by block. That's a pretty decent elemental max hit. There aren't that many big physical spells either, so you're gonna be fine. This is a very tanky build, but it's a very tanky build that does a lot of damage. This number is unbuffed. Let's go into the config to make sure, like, you know, I have allocated War of Attrition, great, but I have not actually made it do anything yet. This is on 0. This is max effect. This is 50% more damage. This is going to be active at any big boss fight where you want the damage, which is significant. It's not like you just don't have it. It's like, oh, it's an ascendancy, but it's kind of, oh, you know, it takes time to ramp. Everyone in Bench League is like being like, oh, it's bait because we want to kill bosses in 5 seconds, so it does nothing. We're playing Ruthless. We're going to fight Cirrus for the full duration. We're going to fight Quest Eater and Quest Exarch for a while. We're going to be there for at least like a minute and a half. By that point, it's basically like, it's full effect. So that's great. Don't know how this persists between like Izaru phases maybe or stuff like that, but you know, even if it doesn't, it's a very cool effect, and it even has some effect if you get a really tanky rare in your face for a while. You know, you're going to slowly deal more and more damage to him and overcome that enemy. I'm also PBing right now on sand stance. Usually I just leave things on blood stance because I like numbers going up, but sand stance has such a big effect on our EHP. And the reduced damage taken from things we're next to, it makes us much more likely to get whacked by a very like nasty rare that we're jumping into and hitting, which means we can stay in the fray for longer, which is better, so we can sustain that 90% block chance. The last thing we want to do is run away from things. If we run away from things and we're not getting hit as much by little hits, we'll get less block chance, and then we're actually less survivability. This build is like very in the fray. It's very like, it's a very Gladiator style kind of thing. I want to jump in and hit things. As long as I'm hitting things, I'm tankier. But you can just toggle this whenever it has a short cooldown. You just switch to blood stance whenever you're like bursting stuff, like because this DPS also, like, should we turn on all the DPS numbers? Because this is deceptive. This build does not do 2.5 million damage ish. Oh, I mean, we've got Vaal Double Strike on, don't we? Well, that's already on, so it does less than that. Yeah. So we've got that number, and then that's 100. We've already got Vaal Double Strike active. I was going to turn that on, but it's already on. That's not always up. Blood stance. And then we place our banner. And you see when all of these things aligned, I mean, also we're on brittle ground. That's like a late game upgrade. Maybe we can take that, yeah, like 10% more damage. When we get all this stuff together, we're getting up to like 5.5 million DPS for a bit. This lasts for like 10 seconds. Like Vaal Double Strike lasts for like 6 seconds. You get a good boost of this kind of damage. And then, you know, maybe your banner goes down and maybe like Vaal Double Strike stops working and you're still doing like 3 million standard. And then maybe you want to get tankier again, so you can just drop that a bit. Like, the DPS floats between about like 2 million to 5 million. Rage is really easy to keep up as well. It looks so exciting, the kind of damage we're going to be able to deal without being a glass cannon build. I'm seeing people POB glass cannon builds right now. They're like, oh, I made it to have 3 million damage, thank God. And this build is doing like 5 million potentially. And this is even with the best gear it can have. We'll go over the gear fully in a bit. Let's talk about leveling trees before I start gushing too much about what I'm excited for this build. Act 1, Duelist start historically has been like potentially very strong and Ruthless because you can rush precise technique, which is what we're going to do around the middle of Act 2. Act 1, this is all we really need. We take this, we take this, we take some life. We don't take any of these. This is very important. I mean, if you get like really good two-handed weapon, you're like, oh, I can use this maybe until like Act 3 because it's so crazy strong as a rare, maybe take Destroyer. But you'll want to take that off later, so it's like respec points. You can do that with gold in the next league, but it's going to cost you something. It probably costs less early, but then we get less gold in Ruthless early, probably. So bear that in mind. This is a dual-wielding build, but it's very important for these trees, for these leveling trees, that we don't take anything that's specific to dual-wielding or like a weapon type too soon. Act 1 is a lot easier if you can work with everything that drops. The last thing you want is your rare item to drop as like a sword and you've already taken your axe nodes, or it's like a one-hander and you're already taking two-hander nodes and you can't use it very well. I think it's better to just not invest in these nodes early, and then we're just rushing precise technique ASAP to make Act 2 a lot easier. So you see we're just taking the accuracy here. I did this kind of thing in practice, actually, without the melee buffs, and it was fine. Your mileage may vary, of course, and you want to mule. There's notes in the leveling here. I would mule a Marauder, get your Growl Sound, get Decoy Totem, super comfy, and maybe don't level these so you can use them from the get-go. You have Heavy Strike, Enduring Cry when you kill Brutus, and Sunder when you rush to Cavern of Wrath. And Sunder's what we can swap to when we hit Cavern of Wrath on the duelist, on the main character. And then going into Act 2, we finish off this accuracy. This gives us res as well. We need this accuracy as we level as well. Like, we're gonna start not hitting things unless we're only using swords, and it just feels really bad otherwise. We take this. This combo is really nice because it's 40% more damage, and this means any weapon type we're using, we're gonna always 100% hit with. And we go straight down here, and we take this rage. 2 rage on hit, which isn't like, it's like 4 rage per second, but that means in like 7.5 seconds, we get to 30 rage, which is 30% more damage. So you see how we're doing this? This is generic 40% more damage. This is generic 30% more damage. We're just getting the equivalent of having support gems on our character via the tree that are flexible. Nothing specific aside from that. You know, we have to take axe for this. So at this point, like when we're finally taking these axe nodes, we want to be using an axe. But axes are great anyway, so you're probably going to be using an axe. Having this accuracy means you don't need to be using swords or anything, you know? And then we take some life here and go straight over here and grab Bastion Breaker. This is huge right now because they have changed this, so these two stack into 100% chance. We have 100% chance to ignore enemy physical damage reduction with these like 4 points. Done. You'll notice in the final build that we're not doing any Impale because it's just not as much DPS. You can fiddle around with it if you want and try to work out if it's more DPS. I have tried, it's not, because we need to take the crit and stuff later and stuff. We only have so many points, which is cool because if we had to go Impale, we'd have to get this stat on Impale, which requires like a mastery. You'll see there is this one, which is another point. But being actually just pure upfront physical hit damage means that all our damage just goes through enemy armor, enemy extra physical damage reduction. Those map mods do nothing, and this makes bosses early on just fall over because they have no more armor anymore. So it's really good to rush this sooner rather than later. These travel notes, going along here is going to feel like, oh, you know, it's a long and arduous journey, but the reward is so good at the end. And you want to go here, it's faster than going across here, and you know, we don't have to go around there yet because there's some other stuff we might want to take after this. You know, you start taking a life here. If you need more res, if your gear is really shit, take this earlier as well. But then this is the thing, around Act 4 I think I'm probably just going to be able to swap to Double Strike because I'm looking forward to just doing that. Ignore this being anointed here, by the way, this is doing nothing. I'm going to do this around Act 4, I think. You don't have to though. If you're enjoying Sunder, you know, you can do Sunder. At this point as well, you'll notice we still haven't taken any dual wield stuff, so we can still be using a two-handed weapon if that's the best thing that's dropped. You know, you just change your gear regularly as you go. You're still flexible. As long as it's an axe, you're going to get rage. So it's just one-handed or two-handed axes. And this is cool because, yeah, you can just invest in this to make Double Strike work, and then you have just like one skill. This is good for like, if you found like a bunch of, if you're getting lucky with support gems, you might want this because you might not be able to support both Sunder and Double Strike. That's like a rare example. You're probably not going to get many support gems. Without taking this, you can just take some other stuff early, like in Act 5. We go up here, take this life, and get this mana leech going as well. And also I take Feller of Foes. So you can take this instead of that. You get some more accuracy here, help you push life more. You probably don't need that much yet, because this mastery gives you so much when you're like lower level. Around Act 5 is when I take this like leech node. You're probably doing enough damage now to actually leech mana. This doesn't really do anything if you're not doing enough mana leech. And this is going to help you, like, you're going to be comfortable going into Innocent. Again, if your gear isn't as good, you can take this res as well before you do like Innocence. Prioritize that over the damage or the extra life. It might be like better for your EHP versus that fight. It just depends on the gear that's dropping. I don't know how the lead mechanic's going to feel with that, so I don't like saying like you have to take this because you might be fine. Sometimes you just are dynamic. In Act 6, we definitely, though, Act 6 we're going to lose some res after we kill Katava. We definitely take this, and we take Inexorable to get those endurance charges. So that's going to make a big difference. That's the, you know, there's only like, what, like 6 points I'm taking different but here. Yeah. 63, 50, like, oh. Oh, I've taken more life as well. Yeah, we just get tankier for Act 6, so our damage should be fine. Going into Act 7, yeah, we're going to take this Veteran's Wrath here to make our rage gain a lot faster. This is going to help us, like, keep that up a lot much more. This is really good quality of life. I was very much umming and ahhing about whether we needed this in the final build, and then I was just like, screw it. This effect that inherent rage loss starts 1 second later is so strong for our quality of life when running around. It means we have 3 seconds to keep our rage before we lose any of it. You can take the Intimidate Mastery here as well. That's just like enemies take 10% more damage. That's a big amp. Really good. Act 8 is where the big turning point starts. I didn't talk about labs. First lab, by the way, War of Attrition, just take it. We do 50% more damage versus like any boss that's taking any time to kill during the campaign. It's huge. This is where we make this is our turning point. Now we want to go dual wield, which means you need 2 like decent axes. It's not going to be too hard to find 2 axes that are good enough to go dual wielding. You might have found a really good 2-hander that you don't want to feel like losing, but the defensive bonus of getting Determined Survivor and you get that 10% more attack speed, in Act 8 you just start taking this block stuff, and then very quickly you're going to get like, yeah, I mean if we drop Replica Wings of Entropy and like go into like just like regular random axes, you still end you can still end Act 8 with like 68% chance to block. You don't quite have all the spell block yet. Get a bit more of that as you go further down here. We don't have the lucky block yet, but this is still 10% more attack speed, and it lets us cap block a lot easier here, which is huge. I'm gonna put the Replica Wings back on. So yeah, this is the turning point where you're like, I really want. You can do lab as soon as you get into Act 8, and then you just start taking your dual wielding stuff to make that like the investment more and more worth it. In Act 9, we then can take Dervish to get a bit more. This gives a bit more chance to block. And I go over here and probably take a Wavering Stance. This is something you can take this earlier. I think I won't take it earlier because there's a decent chance you find decent evasion gear as you're leveling, which has a bit of a better impact when you're lower level. But like the stun immunity is like really valuable. So I take this around Act 9. We're probably solidifying around definitely having armor gear and getting that PDR up with that, hopefully. So I take this later on. But if you're really struggling with stuns, just take it earlier and just like change it. Again, like you don't have to take this. You don't have to. You can keep on Sunder and take stuff like this earlier. It's like a, you know, this is just if you want to swap earlier, so it's not even that important. But it might be to you if you really want to just like play Double Strike sooner rather than later. It feels good. And then Act 10, you might notice we're chopping this off here. Once you've connected these two, like you've gone into here and you've taken these 2 points here, you can just use some of your free respecs to take this off here. There's like 4 points here. Put the mana stuff here. This is really helpful because it gives you reduced mana cost of attack, which is going to be very important later on. Obviously you could just like keep this on because it's like 4 points and that's 1, 2, 3, 4 points. It's kind of equivalent, but I like doing that. I just like tidying this up for later because you can take the accuracy more as well. So when you start pushing even more life, you might want to start pushing more accuracy. So we can end Act 10 just pushing our life and accuracy up more and more. And again, there's also res here. So yeah, this goes up to like level 69. Like if you don't need the accuracy, for instance, you can take more res to help you get into maps sooner, so you don't have to farm as much. You might need to farm a bit in Act 10 before maps to get your elemental resistances up. Again, I don't know what the lead mechanic's going to be like in terms of like the gear it provides and how it helps us with that, so I'm not going to make any definitive statements. But yeah, this is like I do the swap here, and you technically could just like leave this here. You know, you could just like leave this here, but then you don't have like the ability to take this comfortably. As long as you're going down here to take this, you might as well just take this 1 point and then take all this off, you know, and put this over here. Reduce mana cost of attack is just to be really nice later on. It's more like a later on investment when we get like a 5-link going and our mana cost is getting like annoying for the build when we have more auras and stuff like that as well. So you know, this is just mana leech. Blood Rage provides our physical damage, leeches life, which is, you know, more than enough. Then there's this point where we're still in maps, early maps. We're doing like white maps, maybe pushing into yellows. We don't have Replica Wings of Entropy yet. Maybe we're getting auras, and we take Leader of the Pack, and we take the Reservation Mastery, and that's all we really need to fit our auras. And you see, there's not too many. If you like compare the trees, we start taking our Prismatic Skin, take more max res. We can take Diamond Skin here as well, just to help. Yeah, I'm planning probably just take this, and then we just like leave it. And there's Born to Fight up here. There's some extra masteries we take. I would take off these life nodes probably, because they're just like, it's like 8% life and a tiny bit of damage for like 4 points, and you can use the points better on the tree for other things. Like, I don't take this life earlier, for instance, because it's like 5% per node rather than these 6% nodes. But you can take that. You're playing hardcore, just take more life early as well. It's all flexible. There's nothing like your build will fall apart if you don't take this node here and this node here. Take what you need when you need it. There's not that many changes going into, like, this goes up to like 83, and I don't think we'll be level 83 before we've found Replica Wings of Entropy. Just, you know, as you progress your Atlas, as you get your Kirak mission chance and all that stuff, and then just block the 9 mechanics other than heist. Target heist. Otherwise, you're gonna have to buy it off someone else on trade. I would just target farm heist early on, and it shouldn't take too long to see one. The big thing with this build is we're doing a crit swap. You'll notice this says that switching to this tree requires only 15 refund points. We use like 4 here to do this as well, so you should be able to do this using your free respecs, and that's very helpful, especially if you can do this at lower level than, like, you know, if you're like above like level like 80, 85. By the time you're swapping, it's going to cost more gold potentially to swap in the future. So you want to do this maybe earlier, but it doesn't really matter too much. You can definitely do this with your free respec points. You don't have to farm any Orbs of Regret, and we're going to be able to swap to crit by doing that. It's a very comfortable swap. This is very planned out. So you'll see we're taking all this stuff here. This stuff is a bonus, kind of, this like goes up to level 90 on the final tree. There are only 3 bits, just like there are 3 bits on the tree where we take block, there are 3 bits on the tree where we take crit. This node, this whole wheel is absolutely insane. This is breathtaking. I can't believe how good this is. Then we also take this as well for a massive amount of crit chance. Also gives us some accuracy rating, very, very desirable, making things just like work out on, like, you know, a level 20 precision plus all the tree plus this mastery that gives us 50% more attack accuracy rating at close range. This is amazing. And we take Dismembering because it's right here. We don't go up here. There's like a crit node up here. There's some life and stuff. And you might be like, oh, there's axe nodes here in crit. This is great. I've tried POBing it. It's not as good. You can lop this off and it's like less life, and you have to lop something else off as well. Like, you end up with less life and less damage. Again, you can put this into POB yourself and work it out, and if you work out that it could be better, then take it, but I'm pretty sure it's not. It's like, yeah. We're also going to maim everything on hit, which is really nice, because like that's like less movement speed, so we can't get run down by anything if we suddenly need to run away, which we probably shouldn't need to, but it's helpful. That's the final tree. That's what we're ending on. You see how this is a nice little tight setup. Later on we go up here. When you get a good jewel, take the jewel socket, take your endurance charge and frenzy charge. These give so much EHP now because they give less elemental damage taken. Well, it gives additional elemental damage reduction, which is basically, yeah. One thing I'm not taking on this tree right now is the 30 life mastery. I don't know if this is worth a point, and it probably is for most people. Like, oh my god, it's just life, take the life, but it's only 30 life. Earlier on, probably it's better to take, and I don't know if I keep it later, because again, every point matters when you're like POBing around level 90. Every one of these points matters a lot. You know, there's like a 6% life node gives us 107 life, and this gives us like 65. It's like not nearly as effective as a lot of the other points we put into life. So I don't know if it's going to be something I keep in the build. I probably take it earlier. When you have less flat life on gear, it's better. When you have more, it's probably worse. They buffed life on body armors as well, so this mastery sucks now. You definitely don't want to take this. You want the flat life from your body. You want a good chunk of that. That's desirable. Let's break down the skills for the endgame build as well. You'll notice this is not like a 7 link. There's just some options here. on the previous time I was making a guide for this, I was thinking like, oh, we take Fortify at first, and we probably drop it when we get like a body armor mod that can give it. But I don't think that's going to be reliable enough, because it's only a small chance, and even when we're attacking a lot of times, Fortify as a thing, you have to like pass the enemy's like ailment threshold or something to trigger it and have it stack up properly. And having 100% chance with Fortify support's probably the best way to do that. It's probably just best to keep that. So this is desirable to keep in the build. If you roll the mod on your body armor though with the Eldritch Implicits later on and it works, then maybe drop it and it's a lot more damage. But I think this is going to be desirable. This is on a 5 link still, and for our 6 link you can take Impale. But melee fizz is actually arguably slightly less damage. It's slightly less attack speed, slightly more damage. It's less attack speed, but also remember, if we take Impale, this damage doesn't do as much against anything with boosted PDR. Armored enemies, like magic packs with physical damage reduction, map mods that give it. So I think it's better to just ignore Impale entirely. But it's there. It's there if you want to tick it and then check. You can see this for yourself. You tick Impale support. Go over here and see what these kind of nodes do. You see this one here is going to say that's 23.9% per, you know, that's quite a bit, but then you have to remember it's like 5 points to the node. We have to take a travel node, so actually it's less than 5% per point. To exemplify how good some of these wheels are, if I hover over this is giving us 30% DPS increase for 4 points. That's 7.5% per node. It's so good. This is why Replica Wings of Entropy is such a cracked weapon for this setup. It's why we go crit. So fuck Impale, like, we'll probably just take this as a 6 link, and then look at our damage. Multi-strike is essential. We always take multi-strike. You might ask, oh, what about trauma stacking? I've always liked trauma stacking before. I don't want to play a Juggernaut. If you want to play a Juggernaut, you can play a Juggernaut. You can change this P to B to be a Juggernaut. The thing is, if you're playing Juggernaut, you're not using this. You're not going crit. You're doing a whole different setup. I don't know how it's going to work out. Like, you'd probably use Frost Breath or something and abuse the flat damage, but I don't want to play a Juggernaut, honestly. I want to block 90% of my hits. I want the Gladiator experience. I want more of attrition to ramp up my damage to like an extra, like, that off again, but like, I don't want to play Juggernaut. And yeah, multi-strike is what we use. We're not using trauma because obviously this doesn't work with trauma properly, because you only get 1 trauma stack every 3 attacks, which isn't really worth it. You might notice on here actually trauma support does get listed as like a decent damage increase, similar to like taking, yeah, it's kind of similar to Impale, but then we have to tank the trauma, which ends up being, it's not much on multi-strike, to be fair, but it's still not really worth it. Just like adding this, like that's like 5 times per second. That's actually a lot of self-hit damage when you think about it. That's like, it might be actually per hit as well. I don't know if it's per hit or per attack. But it's when you gain trauma, so it is per. When you gain trauma from supports. Oh, it's only once every 3 attacks then. I mean, like, arguably you could, but it's not really worth it. I don't like it. And obviously, like, hang on. Let's just note that if we take off multi-strike, obviously, like, you know, multi-strike doesn't do much when we have trauma now, but then, like, then we get to the point where I said, oh, it's sustainable towards 24, but now we are taking 600 damage, over 3 times per second. That is not sustainable at all. So you have to be a Juggernaut to stack armor to make this work. And I'm just, we're not playing Juggernaut for once in my life. I mean, I say that I played Chieftain last league. The Juggernaut supremacy, I think, has ended. They've nerfed the flat damage on this as well. I think it's just better to go up front like this, because then you don't have to ramp your damage with trauma either, which is a bit like spotty when you don't have like any stacks. Moving on to what I'm putting my boots here, we got purchase mark on hit for quality of life. You don't want to self-cast this, it sucks. Consecrated Path linking also to life tap here, so we can always move around. I like having Consecrated Path on this link with life tap. So there's no situation where if you want to suddenly blink around, you can blink around big monsters, you can blink from pack to pack, you can blink to the other side of a pack. Very good in Delve to get out of spotty situations potentially. If you're like, oh, I can't kill the things that are surrounding me, I need to move, if you get trapped in the darkness. Having this on life tap so you don't ever like fail to like swing with it is very comfy. I would put it on life tap every time. Aura is in our helmet. Precision is free. We take that. We can have this at level 20, but you don't necessarily need it at level 20. Here it's like level 19. If you get accuracy on your gear, you can drop this and you have more mana reserve. So accuracy mods on your gear, I said in this notes that you don't need them, but it is a way to get more potential like mana pool. If that feels like it's ever being a problem, it's a good way to like have a tiny little upgrade. Pride is basically essential for how much damage it deals. It's just like, you know, 50% more damage. Once it's ramped up, it's like 4 seconds, so it like doesn't take long. You want to keep close to things. We also want to keep closer to things for flesh and stone. Flesh and stone is crazy now for a 25% aura. I'm surprised I'm surprised they didn't make this cost more, like make it a 35%, like the, you know, like the heroin, like the purity things or whatever. This is why we stay in stance, I think, quite a lot, because this is like, whenever we're close to stuff, it doesn't apply to things off screen, so we want to be moving fast and into things. We don't want to stand still and like get shot from archers off screen as much. But we'll block most of their attacks anyway, that's fine. But you know what I mean, with like the big, there are some big things that can one-shot you, like in Heist, you have the Cirrus robots that fire the beams. We want to jump on those. And we're in sand stance, we'll take 20% less damage if we get hit. And then we block a lot of the time anyway, but this is just to stop us from getting one shot even more. And then when we feel safe, we just change it to blood stance, and boom, that's a lot more damage. Enemies take like 20% more physical damage from hits. So it's really, really good. And it's got that, it's like a 1 second cooldown to swap between them as well at max level. We don't need quality on it at all, doesn't do anything. I don't know why they didn't change the quality. Also here we're self-casting Blood Rage. I used to put this on cast when damage taken, and it was like kind of like solid because I would be taking damage regularly, but now we're on block. We're not going to be taking damage as often to trigger a cast when damage taken on this, so we'll just have it at level 20. It's got to do a bit of DPS from the attack speed you get, and this is your physical damage leech. So you always want it up, so get in the habit of just having that on like it's like you're refreshing a flask. I have like an MTX, it's like a pay-to-win MTX that makes it a lot more clear when I have Blood Rage on. It like it turns your character like on fire. It's like the scavenger effect. That helps. That helps to know like, oh shit, I don't have my leech on. Keep your leech on. That's one tiny bit of jank in this build, I'd say, but like it's just like you have to tap it every like 10 seconds or so. It like lasts like 11 seconds. In the gloves we have cast on damage taken with steel skin, level 20. So again, like this is not like a molten shell with like armor and stuff on a low level. This is not going to trigger on the smaller hits. This is going to trigger on the fat hits. This is going to trigger on the like, oh my god, I just lost like, well, it's 3,272. So after you've taken a lot of damage, you're going to get your steel skin up. So if you've taken like a couple of moderate hits in a row, or like a really big hit, like, you know, you've nearly become one shot, boom, steel skin is active, giving you a lot more EHP. You're leeching, you're regenning, you're flasking probably, and then you're okay. You're not going to be at risk, because there's always like, there's a 10% chance we get hit by, let's say, a spell, and then there's another 10% chance we get hit by the next spell if our lucky block is still working. So that's like, you know, there's a 1 in 100 chance we get 2-tapped. That's going to happen. It's only a 1 in 100. That's going to happen. That's 99% of the time it doesn't happen, but 1% it does, and you need to be prepared. You can't just like be like, oh, I have 90% effective block, so nothing hits me. No, you get 2-tapped 1% of the time. So you need a layer like this to help you with that, and that's there for that. More duration on that as well to help out. The mana cost on this should be fine without life tap. It's like 52. This is why it helps have a slightly bigger mana pool, but like per use of our skill, it's like only 40 on a 5-link, and we're going to leech as well, so you shouldn't be like in a situation where it can't trigger due to mana. With Poacher's Mark on life tap as well, there's no risk of that gutting your mana. War Banner as well. War Banner very valuable. This isn't cast when damage taken. It's just for the more duration. War Banner is giving us, we're not investing in Valor at all. I wonder if they fixed the thing yet, by the way. If I click this. Oh, okay, my banner is placed. Have they fixed it yet? Ah, they fixed it! Yay! So I kind of snitched about this. I didn't snitch. It was completely broken and imbalanced, and I was like, this can't work like this. Valor effect was scaling the increased damage taken from this, so it was like 124% increased damage taken at like 105 Valor. which would have been broken, so they said no, that's not working, which is good. So we don't invest in, there's no point investing in Valor on this build. Like, we don't have sources. If you have war cries, you can gain Valor very quickly. That's why it's worth investing in Valor. On this build, we're just going to get it like steadily as we fight a boss. It takes like 25 seconds to ramp to 50 Valor versus boss. We get it very fast in content like Ritual though, and while we're mapping and stuff, because we're killing stuff very fast with our own hits, and you know, we're not doing bleed or anything, so it's very easy to keep that up during that kind of content. And then that is giving us like, it's 4% more physical damage and melee skills, and then like 500% more aura effect on top of that, so it's like 24% more physical damage when it's dropped. And it doesn't have amazing uptime during a boss, but the idea, as I might have mentioned before, is we're going to overlap these things. So when this is all good up, this is 100, we fully ramp this, we go into Blood Stance, we drop Vaal Double Strike, and then we plant our banner. And it has a much more significant effect. Like, you stack these multipliers on top of each other. Make sure you align your, like, it's kind of like, this gives the build a nice bit of agency. Like, you're not just turning your brain off and pressing one button. You want to align your DPS burst windows. It reminds me of like using old Berserk on top of other things. You know, you want to Berserk while you're doing the other thing, so you know, you get like the full effect of shit. Let's set the banner off, but let's leave this, you know, I like the bigger number. Let's just leave it up for now. So we've got these numbers, we've got these more damage buttons, and you do better boss DPS if you're like, okay, my banner's up, and then I use Vaal Double Strike, and then, you know. You might notice as well, there's a bunch of config here. I'm trying to POB proper Vaal Double Strike by saying it deals like 300% more damage, like 4 times damage, because I can't make this account for the fact it's like per clone damage, and you get 4 clones with like 2 uses of it, which are quite quick. Just, you know, it's like 30 souls per use, it's not that much. And so again, the uptime on this isn't like constant, but when it's up, that's the actual damage boost it's giving. It's quite a lot. It's very cool that this skill has a very good Vaal version we can use for damage. Because we don't have Vaal Ancestral War Chief anymore. So a lot of melee builds are having to find a good use for their Vaal souls now, and a lot of them are going to take like Vaal Molten Shell. We can use ours offensively pretty well, because Vaal Molten Shell wouldn't do enough because we don't have much armor. That's the idea. And then in here, like finally, Enduring Cries down here, and this could have urgent orders on it depending on riposte. This isn't in the game anymore. This is going to be Sword Storm. I have tried to simulate the actual effective effectiveness of damage of Sword Storm, and certain effects like, you know, Sword Storm hits with both weapons, so it has the same effect of Cleave, where it's like doing basically double hitting with Replica Wings of Entropy, as far as I'm aware, and it also always crits, because if one of the hits is a crit, if one of the sides of your weapon crits, the whole thing crits. So I've tried to account for the kind of damage that Sword Swarm might be doing. We have to block, and it has a cooldown, so it's not like we're doing like 9 million damage per second. Well, obviously I've tried to account for that as well, so the skill cooldown and this, but it's still like, it's still a lot of potential added damage to the build on like, I think this is, yeah, I have on like a 5 link. If we can get a second 5 link, I'm going to be farming so much Ritual, I might get a second 6 link, and I might just drop in. If it's really good, I will have double 6 links. If Sword Storm feels really good to use, I put this at level 1 to remove the added fizz, but like obviously like there's a 2 to 3 added fizz on this as well. That's like messing with that a tiny bit. It's also the best way to apply Maim. You could also put Culling Strike on it for utility. If it's not dealing as much damage, maybe put Culling Strike on it as well, because that's like, you know, you can just use that to cull things whenever you want, like bigger bosses and enemies, as long as you block their hit. It's situated. I don't know if Culling Strike's gonna feel good on it, because they have to be at 10%, and then you have to block their hit. But Maim is definitely a good thing to put on it, because that's just generally like that then boosts your main skills damage. Sword Storm has like, you might have looked at the gem, that it has like a lot less damage effectiveness as like Crushing Fist, which we could also use, but it hits 8 times, so the overall damage effectiveness is still very high, and it uses both of our weapons, so actually it's like way, I think Sword Storm is like insane potentially for damage. And this is like a little secret at the back end of the build, because, you know, when you add this in, obviously like when this is an attack, it has attack speed, but it has 100% attack speed basically. It's not instant in that sense, but it's like it's faster. than Double Strike, which has like 80% attack speed. So this is a true DPS. Like, this is like, if you take out a bit of the Double Strike DPS, I guess, like a little chunk, maybe like 20%, and then add all this on, and we're constantly blocking, this might actually be the realistic DPS we're doing. It's very hard to tell exactly how it's going to feel. It's, you know, you're not always going to have it off cooldown. So it's more something like, you just think about, like, maybe we're doing about 9 million damage per use on if we put it on another 5 link, even on like another 4 links. Like, so this could be great. Unfortunately, like, POB has not been able to update with the gem info. They've updated some things, but not the gem info, probably because like retaliation steals have a huge amount of extra stuff we're having to work out and understand with them. So I understand if they're taking a while on that, but definitely consider, you know, getting Sword Storm. I'll probably get it with a Seosa gem. Don't get it while you're leveling, because you need to block, so you need to have like the lucky block to make it up often. But retaliation skills on the Gladiator, there's a whole ascendancy for it as well. I don't know if this is going to be worth it. I mean, like, obviously, like, if your clear is good enough. But this build takes gratuitous violence for bleed pops, because we inflict so much bleed on like this and the skill and like this, you know, everything's bleeding, so we can make things explode. But if Sword Storm ends up being really, really good, and we can put it on the second 6 link, there's a way there's a chance we do this. It's worth thinking about. It is very worth thinking about, and this also gives innate block chance, which is cool. So we can like it's even easier to cap block. This is what I'm planning to do for now, though. And if you want like the smoothest clear imaginable, you could just, if you're just playing this for mapping and not bossing, maybe just do this, you know. I like having this on the back end. It's like this is gonna be like how we kill tier 17 bosses potentially. Then that's the skills, and this is just like that's gratuitous violence. And then you know, you can put Enduring Cry somewhere when you have space for it. Like, I take this while leveling. This is mostly helpful now for giving us, it doesn't give us as much life regen. Just note that, because the buff lasts a few seconds. It gives us some life regen that's a bit slower. It doesn't give you like that big juicy chunk you used to get, like an extra life flask basically. But for the endurance charges it's going to grant, this is, it doesn't say it on here, but it still grants endurance charges. We check that per power. So you just, when you're hugging the boss, if you notice that if they're not hitting you enough for inexorable to give you endurance charges, just do the Enduring Cry, and you know, it'll be up for like 12 seconds, which is fine. And then as long as you get hit in once in those 12 seconds enough, because we want to get hit, because we want to trigger our lucky block enough, you should be able to sustain them. Items, you might notice there's a couple of uniques here as well. As like, this is farmable, this is common, this is common. Everything else is like very approachable gear. This jewel is kind of nice. This ring is like a GG ring, but I usually end up with one of these around like a couple of weeks into the league, so I thought I'd just throw them, like, you know, you don't need all the res on the ring, obviously. Like, it looks better than it needs to be, you know. You can put this res elsewhere. Like, this only has one res bond, isn't it, you know. So don't look at this gear being like, you need gear of this quality for this build to work. Like, this, your build will gradually just like scale up as you go. Obviously, yeah, replica wings for the weapon. Before you're using replica wing, just a note, like, let's say we're using some very average axes. These are very average axes, less than 300% PDPS. Do I even have quality on these? Yes, I do. And then we're, oh shit, when we're on the precise technique tree, you notice the build is still doing, like, this is damage we can be doing on like a 5 link in white maps, yellow maps, which is fine. This is fine. Don't worry about that. Oh, hang on. Change this back to this. That is a fine amount of damage, and obviously when you get that crit swap going, it pops, it blows up. And when you get into red maps, you can start getting these. A big note on this, you might have noticed that this goes on the final tree. Where's the mana gone? Where's the reservation? Where's the it's on the helmet. Do a rare helmet and get these implicits. Farm, Eater, and Exarch, Ickers and Embers. Keep rolling on your best helmet till you get them. Then you can save 3 points and put them elsewhere. This is fine to hold otherwise though, but it's very nice to free up the 3 points for various uses. Like, it's more life, more damage, more like get your charges, get your shit, you know. And chest implicits. there is a fortify on hit implicit here, but I don't think it's going to be reliable. I mentioned that earlier, so we can just, you know, get some damage with Pride Aura effect. There's various things you can get here. The all max reg is very nice because there's not too many sources that we take. Another controversial thing, I'm not taking Solar Steel. It's 4 points. It gives you decent EHP, but so does an endurance charge, and it's just kind of hard. Like you can play the puzzle. I've try to work out what you would drop for it, what you would happily drop. Like, are you going to drop like 23% damage? The Soul of Steel with the damage we can do. Like, do you really want to? For the armor, like if you want to play hardcore, obviously take it and drop something. You know, you can drop all the life up here, but that's a lot of life, so that's, you know, you can work it out. I like taking this as well. I like taking this over it. Like, this gives physical damage more, this gives more elemental damage, and you get the protection mastery, which is really valuable. Such a valuable mastery. So I keep that, but we get more max res on the armor, help compensate for not taking it off Soul of Steel. This is enough. On your gauntlets, again, on your gloves, get your +1 strike when you can on a good pair of gloves. I put extra bleed chance on these because there wasn't really much else I could put, but like, actually, if we take that off, we're doing it live. This was just to help with bleed pops. What we could do, oh, hang on, this is 1. And then, so that's the X-Arc. So we can find, you know, there's a bunch of like little things I guess you can get here. You can get extra accuracy here, which helps you de-level precision. You can get, we don't want conversion. Look how bad conversion is, man. Just lose all your D. This is the danger of rolling Ickers on your gloves. You could just lose 20% of your DPS. Increase effect of your marks. There's a little bit. There's Impale on hit. This is kind of cool because you can get like the Eater and you can just add this as like 7.4% more damage just for a little bit of Impale. That's probably the most damage you can add on here. And you also have, yeah, that's kind of it. So you can get some accuracy, or you can just get like tiny bits of damage. Like this is like with a greater, you get like quite a few greater things. You can just put this on, and that's just like you get some Impale now. Like, hooray, we have a little bit. It's just a little bit, like, a little bit of baby Impale. And then maybe that makes Impale support a little bit better. It does not. It makes it worse. But yeah, it's damage. Damage is damage. And then on your boots, because we're playing crit, we can make use of brittle boots, which are still pretty broken. That's 2% to base crit. That basically means our offhand has 100% chance to crit. When we have brittle, it has like 91% otherwise. Just get your general good stuff on these. You notice these are just rares. It's just like life and res and shit. There's nothing else that's really fancy going on. Ignore the crafted life because this is just imported off someone else's item that was like bench crafted life. It's just like, you know, you can get more life than 52 on these actually. You can get where are they? Where are my boots? Greaves. Remove the crafted life. And I'll just put like +70 to maximum life. Again, these are very good boots by ruthless standards. Oh, I put a space by accident. Who knew? Boom, now we have more life. Hey, these are good boots by ruthless standards, but again, this is like when you have boots of this quality, they're all right. They got like, you know, they can have chaos res on them and stuff as well. You know, we get most of our chaos res from rings. When you have good enough boots, throw your, you know, Ickers and Embers on these to try to get that, you know, get that brittle ground. Amulet has loads of options. Terrestrial Salutes are really good because we're on full life a lot of the time, unless we're taking weird amounts of degens. Just stay out of degen pools in bosses that have them. This gives us strike range, it gives us movement speed, it gives us melee damage. The movement speed is so fucking nice. By the way, I didn't notice, I didn't remember to say, but this build helps Kraton for 8% increased movement speed. You can get a bonus passive point if you kill all. So that frees you up to take, I don't know. But this is the funny thing, because like with that bonus passive point, you're not taking the 30 life, because then you have to kill Oak for 40 life. 8% movement speed is just worth it. There's over here as well, there's Feline Swiftness, where you get a lot of like block chance and some APS. You can anoint this instead of this earlier on. It's quite nice for like 8% increased movement speed as well if you just want to zoom. But when we are in maps, we can just consecrated path around. So like as long as we have like a decent chunk of movement speed, I mean that's with elusive effect. It's like 48% flat when we are at full life, which is like that's more than enough. I'm happy with that. Other options, like for more life and to make bleeding not as worrying, even though we have like Steel Skin to help with it a bit, and then probably Flask, you can get Blood Grip. Here's Truth helps us with, give us the level 30 precision, and you know, you don't care about the bow attacks thing, you get Culling Strike from somewhere else, 38% global crit, and the precision is pretty powerful as it is. If you can get an Eternal Struggle with the 50% cull, that's really good, but also the Malignant Madness effect is also really strong on this build. That's like 10% less action speed, and they deal 10% less damage to you. So that's like a mini extra fortify effect you can have from the Eternal Struggle. You have to kill the Infinite Hunger for it though, so this build does not have Juggernaut's like immunity to chill or anything. One thing you can do, one of my favorite ways to deal with chill, I'll put this in here now, Utility Flask, it's probably going to be like a Ruby Flask that has like that has pretty good duration. I mean Amethyst. I could just make it a Aquamarine, like a Sapphire Flask, because it's like we're doing this for chill, and we'll just give it 20% quality, and then you give it like, if you have one of these flasks with like gain charges when you're hit, to make it 2 to make it more realistic, and then give it, and then it's like immunity to freeze and chill during effects, and then you apply and then you enchant it with Einhar. Use when you become frozen, and now you have freeze immunity, or you can have use when you become chilled, and now it you know, it stops you from being chilled, and it recovers itself. And it has only a short duration. It doesn't have like the longest duration, but like it's good. I like, it's one of my favorite little techs I made for chill immunity. I was using this on my Berserker, I think, and it was I definitely used it as well on my I used it on my Chieftain, because Arctic Armor gave freeze immunity but I didn't have chill immunity, and it was a slower attacking build, so I really wanted that, so I just put this on. And then a lot of the time, yeah, if it bottomed out, you start getting chilled again, but functionally you have a lot of like avoidance of being chilled, and it's like an automatic thing, so you don't have to piano it. You're using up a flask slot, but flask slots in Ruthless do not get used very well because of their short duration and not getting charges during their effect. So having an automated thing like this, just like an extra like guard skill versus cold damage, is quite nice actually. I recommend it. Rings, again, like these are good rings. You can get physical. This is another ring. In order to drop this, you have to get the leech on this. You have to get the mana leech. You can't do that until then. You need the mana leech otherwise. But again, getting a good ring like this is an impossible. This is a really good ring. This is a very good ring. But you can drop off some of the res or drop off the light. You know, you can find your best mana leech amethyst ring and equip it, and then you can drop this. You'll be running this for a bit longer, generally, but you know it's good. And yeah, just get your chaos res via these rings here. Belt slot, I think the best belt we can possibly have is Belt of the Deceiver, to give us that Intimidate, so late game we can swap this Mass Street for more Rage. We don't care about the downside of that node. There's more Rage there. There's reduced damage from critical strikes. That will help for the Wildwood stuff that we'll be doing in red maps, because we now have Wildwood again, so we have Wisps again, so we have Blue Wisps again, so we get crit again. And crits are what's going to one-shot us through our block potentially, so that's what we want to watch out for. And it has some life and Elia res and stuff. It's a very it's a low-level build. It actually has a really strong effect for our build. It's quite hard to find a better thing. Like, you can get permanent onslaught from this. The fortify on hit is not reliable though, because it has to stun. Gives a bit more life, I think. Yeah. How much more life does this give actually? Not even that much. No, it's like 7 it's not even that much. The flat life is very valuable. Armed Anguish is kind of crap now. It is more DPS, as you'll see, but it's a very late game item because it drops on the Maven, so it's very hard to get one. And you lose endurance charges, and they just buffed those by quite a lot. I wouldn't do that. I would keep your endurance charges. This build does not want to, we don't want to die and lose experience, do we? One thing worth noting, if you keep this and don't take the helmet implicits, and you find an Abyssus, you can do very funny things with this build on an Abyssus. Just bear in mind that this will get you killed with the increased physical damage taken. Probably. You can wear this if you're not trying to push levels and you want to kill bosses more easily. There are some bosses just don't deal much physical damage at all. And this could be a swap you can consider for them. It has a lot of armor on it at least, so you do get like, you do keep like a lot of armor. Those are the items. And yeah, we've gone over like there's some funny things in this config, obviously, you know, like this is the fixed onslaught. So if we take onslaught, we don't gain movement speed, which is like quality of life to like for the POB. This dual wield mastery is broken. I just put this node here, and then it gives me the tick box to say like we can gain elusive, another defensive layer, because when we block 20%, 1 in 5 blocks gives us elusive, and then elusive gives us 50% chance to avoid all hits, which decays over time. Also a boost of movement speed, but you know, every little helps. It's worth it. That's fortify, that's elusive. Heroic fortified, we're not always elusive, but yeah, we have an average effect of it generally. And I mean, we might want to average the effect of this down. Like when it's 100% effectiveness, it's like this. It's probably more like around like 40% effectiveness, or like even like 33, because like we have to re-block again and then trigger the block. It's like I put it like 30% effectiveness, and it's still doing good stuff. And then yeah, there's sword storm stuff. Well, you know, check the gem for yourself. Take out all of this stuff is based around riposte, so none of this stuff does anything when riposte gets deleted from the game, so that's good. Adrenaline is not accidentally ticked on this POB. I've done it this time. I have not accidentally ticked adrenaline, thank God. I did that before in a previous build guide and spent the whole time with my DPS inflated. Yeah, so yeah, you can see that nothing's really messing around with the config. You know, again, you might want to take that off of realistic, like running around maps DPS. This is more than enough, 2 million DPS, and it's all like, it's not, most of it's not impale DPS. I mean, this is like impale with like the glove mod now, but like generally we're just doing raw physical damage. And the important thing about that is like, that's immediate, that's on the first hit and the next hit and the next hit. It's not like it has to ramp a bit. Impale, you have to deal the impales to get the impale damage, so it's like it's not as much upfront damage. So this is going to feel better on clear arguably than like, you know, going into impale. And as we've looked at before, like impale on this build with the points we have available in ruthless just doesn't give more damage than just taking the crit wheels and the axe wheels here and here. Play around with this. There's a lot more stuff you can, you know, there's a few extra things here you can find, like, you know, that's 5% more damage effectively. 0.1% damage, nice. We don't need, you know, maybe we don't go bleed pot. Maybe this is better because Swordstorm, maybe Swordstorm is actually insane for this build, because we have 100% chance to crit on it. That's pretty cool. That is very cool potentially for this build if it does work the way it looks like it's going to work. But again, I can't POB it yet, so I'm not going to say like this is a Swordstorm build now. But this build can definitely run 2 5 links, 2 6 links. If you do enough ritual, you can get those omens of connections. You can do it. You can make it happen. If you have hybrid evasion gear, maybe a bit of suppression, take iron reflexes. If you have a bit of suppression on your gear, maybe take this. Maybe you can get like a 50% chance to suppress spell damage as well, which is like even better at defensive layer. Your EHP can go through the roof. Loads of stuff you can change. Loads. None of this is set in stone. The most important thing is just use this weapon, go crit. Take the best damage nodes, take enough stuff to make you not die, cap your block, cap your lucky block. Always take this stuff. I mean, always take this. It's just good. And that's it, basically. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the notes have a lot of information about all these little things that I just talked about here. If you like it in text form as a point of reference, if you don't like the sound of my voice, or, or you know, it's a lot easier to sort through than like clicking through a video, so I thought I'd like write a lot of the stuff I've been thinking out. I need to like add these, like do more. I might just take this off actually in the, you know, it's kind of like self-explanatory stuff. I'm not gonna like over explain certain things in the build. There's a bit of notes on like what we do in, you know, how mapping and bossing feels differently based on the buttons we press. Rage, you know, capping our block, fortify. And yeah, and about the crit swap as well down here, you know, like it's very straightforward. I've never done like such a big swap, like, oh, I get an item and then I change a bunch of stuff around, but it's gonna work, and it's gonna be even easier this league with the gold, but you're gonna have enough points even without the gold, which is very cool. And you've got your general leveling notes there, where you can see the order which you take gems. I might put this on a separate line for like. So I take Blood Rage before Poacher's Mark while leveling as well, just because like this gives frenzy charges when you're running around, which is really nice for like just like clearing stuff out, and Poacher's Mark is like You only really need you'll be fine without purchase mark for a while, because you have 100% chance to overwhelm Fizz by the time you're like poking into like Act 3 anyway. Blood Rage is just really good. A lot of bosses as well earlier on have minions, so you'll be able to get the frenzy charges for Blood Rage. You can swap these around though if you feel like it. Blood Rage also gives you like life leech. Consecrated Path, you have to wait till Act 5 for that probably. Yeah, Swordstorm. I'm gonna take off the note saying no idea. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be very good. Obviously Swordstorm is less good. You have to get supports to make it like do real stuff, but like it's a very good apply for Mame early on if you're just going to put that on it. That's the build. That's the breakdown. That's the juice. I'm so excited to play this. I was thinking about, seeing the Warcry changes, about playing another slow slammer, but I did one last league. I'm seeing lots of very cool builds for that. Definitely check out that archetype if you're interested in pressing lots of different piano Warcry kind of shit. But this build doesn't have any of that. This build is pure melee, but we are, instead of being like a big slammer, we're basically live action role playing as a lawnmower, and you just blitz your way through maps. Your attack speed is insane. You got extra strikes, splash damage. We didn't really lose, by the way. We didn't lose much from like when they nerfed Double Strike of Impaling. So obviously they got that new damage fix. See how much less damage it is now. It's way better to just go to regular Double Strike. This was dealing like, we lost like 10% damage, and we lost the effect of it reflecting impales to nearby stuff. But we get splash damage from Tribal Fury. We get bleed pops. It's not like we needed it, so that's fine. Yeah. So let me know if you have any questions or comments, if you can spot anything that's glaring and confusing, if you're unsure about. I'll put the POB in the description. I'll put some other useful links in the description as usual, like to the Ruthless Primer, which is not updated probably as I make this video, but maybe it will be by the time the league starts, and if it's not, then there's still some useful information there. I hope everyone has a really fun league start. I'm so looking forward to playing this build. In the new league with all the new features, or all the buffs and everything. Should be comfortable to level, should be very exciting to get going. Once we get that crit swap going, we're just gonna pop off so hard. Yeah, all right.